Which everyone, Kojima Shiv, and welcome back to episode number 121 of the Inline G Flute Podcast with me, your host, motherfucking Inline G. Regular listeners, I am sorry for the absence of the intro music, but it will be back next week. I am looking at a solution. Kneecap have changed the copyright laws regarding the music, so I can't use it anymore as an intro, but I have got a great alternative plan. It's just taking a wee while to get together, but bear with me on that. Now, this week's episode is a little bit of a strange one. I am not going to lie, lads. I think this is the best solo episode I've ever written. Between this and the one I've written about Poulenc and the decapitation, I was very proud of that episode. I thought that was fucking class. This week's episode is a belter, but it's a strange way to present it. Originally, the idea behind this episode was, one, to use it as a floater episode. So I was going to pre-record it, leave it for a week where I didn't have a guest or I didn't have an idea or something happened and I've got one in the bank to just throw out. It's going out this week because already I was meant to continue the influencer series from the last 3 episodes. Technical issues affected the recording of it, so it's getting straight out. 2, this episode is not intended to be a podcast episode. It is a workshop. I've been invited by the Flute Nerd, Alexandra, to do a workshop, which I'll be posting about and talking about. It's going to be on, I think it's Saturday the 15th of November. And this is my sort of first draft or my first crack at what I want to talk about in that. So I've got the information in a way that's presented as a workshop and I'm going to do it for you guys. But it is the culmination of everything I've done on Inline G. So I'm really excited to bring it to you guys. It's all about creativity, self-esteem, and orange cola. I'm just going to get stuck into it, lads. And I hope that it'll work because even the process of writing this episode has been one of the most enjoyable Inline G episodes to write. It has been amazing because it's fed back into itself. It's became almost like an Inception kind of money. So, and to do this as a workshop and to explore this topic, this is something I've had open in my brain for a while. It's been one of those open tabs up in my brain that I've left there and it's been cooking away. Letting the flavors get to know each other, as Alison Roman would say. So when Alex reached out to me, it was time to take this thought off the stove and chop up some fresh basil, put it in a bowl, and bring it out for you. Now, my initial idea of this whole thing was to tell a story about how I created a flute podcast in my roof space one day, and it resurrected my entire career in terms of orchestral playing and teaching, and how you yourself could do that. I mean, not you yourself start a flute podcast. For the love of God, don't do that. I don't fancy any more competition. But use something outside of flute playing to boost your playing through the same methods I've done. The main topics were going to be creativity and self-esteem, but as I sat down and I researched them, it ended up being this like inception moment where I realized the act of researching in itself was a creative process. And I ended up down one of those rabbit holes that triggered a feedback loop of creativity. And that took up an entire Monday for me. It was fucking lovely. And I only got out of this loop because someone messaged me asking to go to the pub. I am also horrifically hungover today. But here, you're getting an episode because I'm off to Ireland tomorrow and I'm going to be even worse. So you're getting it now. So what I'm going to try and do over the next few minutes, also I'm doing this to get a bit of timing and a feeling for the timing. There has never been, my brain's everywhere today. There has never been an episode that's more important to get your feedback than this one because I'm going to present it in a different format and hopefully bring it to different places. So please, come back and give me your feedback. This is a trial for me as well. Today, I'm going to try and masterfully present my own story of the last few years, intertwined with some psychological principles regarding creativity and tangible ways that you can do the same. Easy peasy. Sure, it'll be grand. And you've all seen the title, hopefully, of this one that will include the words orange cola. I promise I'll get to that, okay? As I walk you down some strange paths over the next few minutes, hold that wee thread. Take your right hand out, hold that wee thread of orange cola, and it'll bring yourselves back later on. So we're going to speed run the background story. Again, regular listeners, you will know this, but please bear with me for the new people. I'm from Belfast. That's what this noise is coming out of my mouth. And I have studied and played flute pretty much my entire life. I moved to Cardiff at 18 to do a bachelor degree in flute performance at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, and then I went on to Paris to study at the École Normale de Musique de Paris for 3 years, doing a postgrad with Catherine Contant and Magali Mounier, principal flutes of Paris Opera and the Radio France Orchestra, respectively. Now, after that, in 2018, I moved here, where I am now, to stinky Germany, and my adopted home city of Cologne, or Köln, as we say in German. Now, initially, I moved here to study with Robert Wynne, and then I started to freelance orchestrally with the goal of getting a permanent job in an orchestra. The standard, traditional route for a classical musician, which is a load of bollocks. So I'm going to do my best to not swear in this episode, guys, as well, because I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in the workshop, so I have to practice that. It's fucking hard. It is a Belfast thing, man. It's what we do. In 2020, a wee bug popped up called COVID-19, and my entire career came to a screeching halt. No more gigs, no more auditions, no more lessons, no more money, and I'd totally fallen out of love with flute playing and classical music. This industry is brutal, and it is full of wankers. And without the music itself being made, I couldn't handle it anymore. The music was the saving grace. I was a little lost, a little existential, and then after 6 months of that, I was bored. I was really fucking bored. There's only so many counterfeit AC Milan jerseys a man can buy to plug that hole of happiness. And I was sitting watching the FA Cup final with a couple of friends in 2021, I think it was. And yeah, I had a few friends around the flat because pubs were still closed. This is in Germany. And shock horror, we had a few beers as we were watching the match. Four straight white lads drinking beer and talking about all the things that the Chelsea players did wrong that day. We were fucking screaming at them because if we were managing them, if it was us four managing them, we'd have won the league by now. Obviously. Hello. Fueled entirely by Beck's and Budweiser. But then this light bulb moment came to me that comes uniquely with cheap beer and male ego when they line up beautifully like that. And we all looked at each other and went, we should start a podcast. What a great idea. We're so intelligent. We're so funny. We have unique rapport that the internet needs to have. Nay, the world needs to have. It needs to be out there. We were convinced of it. We were so drunk. So two of us actually did that. We just started a podcast. We called it the England B Team Football Podcast. Anyone new to this podcast probably don't know that I used to have a football podcast. Unfortunately, the England B Team did stop after about 20 episodes. It got nowhere near the target views we wanted. We didn't get invited to the FIFA World Cup, and David Beckham still hasn't replied to my DM about launching a courier company together. I was going to call it Send It Like Beckham. I thought it was fucking great. In every single way we could measure, the England B Team podcast was a failure. And it was fucking gorgeous. It was gorgeous. I'm going to tell you why later, okay? Because it is a beautiful and important thing to feel. That's another thread to hold on to. Take your other hand out, put that thread in it. Failure, put that in your left hand. We'll get to that as well. So, after I launched the England B Team podcast, I realized the process of launching a podcast wasn't that hard. I bought some microphones, screwed on my laptop, found some videos on how to record, and voila, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. For a long time, I've wanted to run a food podcast. I always intended to do it. I kept a couple of notes knocking about, but I never had the cojones to finally get around to it. Essentially, I wanted to make the kind of podcast that I wished existed when I was a student at music college. And now I have the skills to do it. I know how to record a podcast. I know how to release it. So I went away and I launched Inline G. So at the start, there was 0 targets for Inline G, 0 goals. I basically said once a week, I'm going to pick a topic that I really like. I'm going to research it and I'm going to just put it out. I'm going to do it for me. I'm going to talk about it and stick it on the internet. It's for me. And then the guest episodes, they came later. That was never the intention. The initial plan was all solo with one special guest for episode 10. Well, look what happened. But anyway, learning the technical skills through the England B Team podcast, I learned something far more useful than technical skills. And it was how to have fun while creating. This is something I'd totally fallen out of love with. Classical music, or even the fine, fucking inverted commas the fine arts in general, they're in the middle of the Venn diagram of art and science. We sit bang in the middle. Yes, it is expressive and emotive and creative. However, there's a great deal of technical proficiency that you have to get to that level. We all know this. You have to play in tune. You have to play in time. You have to play the right notes, the right speed, the dynamics, the tempi. You have to blend. All these things are technical, and you have to learn them first before you get to the fun bit. And I, for a long time, thought it was maybe 80% technical, 20% creative. Like, really playing the flute for me was a technical endeavor. And only when I really learned a piece and did all the technical aspects, I felt I could have a little bit of fun and choose myself what I'm going to do. The artistic side, I've got to do a bit of vibrato here, or a new color there, or different articulation here. It was all fun. But even then, there was this weird pressure of performing works that had been performed countless times before me, done hundreds of times. And there's a pressure that comes with that. There's a standard. There's almost a right and wrong to these things too. You never... Should we use vibrato in Mozart? That's another question. You were told that it is wrong or tasteless to use too much vibrato in Mozart. There you are. Even the expressive, creative parts of it, there's right and wrong. Bollocks. You never really just get to have fun. You never get to just go have... The positive moments at high-end classical music are usually ones that involve pride, relief, or ego, all attached to achievement especially. But there's very little positive emotion in the process. It's just at the end, when you do the thing, you get to enjoy it a little bit. Making Inline G was the opposite of that for me. Nothing like this podcast exists. Nothing existed then. Nothing ever will exist like this podcast. And that is not a compliment, by the way, to myself. But there's no accepted rulebook of how to make a flute podcast. It's a blank slate. I got to do whatever I want. Zero repercussions. Apart from the odd legal case. But apart from that, zero repercussions. And the process of writing each episode was the funnest part of it. Like, there was an early episode I did, I think it's like number 6 maybe, about the Nazi past with the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. It was fucking class to read about it all, man. I was up to 3 a.m. some of those days, reading obscure articles and fucking corners of Facebook that you really should be going to find out more about the Nazis. And I loved it. It was fucking class, man. I was up all night reading about Nazis. It was great. And then I put it all together at the end. I just went, right, and put this together and I'll make a script out of it. I'll throw in a couple of jokes with it. I'll write a few. That's it. Here, Bob's your uncle again. Stuck it online and it went live. And that was it. Once it went live and it went on the internet, done. Done and dusted. I didn't give a shit about views. I didn't give a shit about streams or any kind of tangible measurement. It can go fuck itself. I didn't care. The joy of Inline G was and is to enjoy the creative process and have fun. And are you ready for that intertwining, by the way? Told you I was going to intertwine some psychological principles. Are you ready for the first one? I know this is boring, by the way, but just stick with me because we are getting to the psychological bits. If you know me already, you've had a waste of 9 minutes, sir. I'm sorry. But if you're ready, here we go. Some principles. Now, one of the best books I have ever read, which I only picked up quite recently, is a book called Creativity by John Cleese. As in that John Cleese, like the one you're thinking of, the guy from Fawlty Towers and Monty Python, the actor. You all know him. So John Cleese wrote this. It's a very short book, by the way. Go and buy it. You could read it in an hour. You can get the Kindle version. It's fucking brilliant. And John Cleese writes it beautifully and has a great way of expressing his ideas. But he expanded on the work of a theological philosopher called Donald MacKinnon. Now, MacKinnon explored creativity intensely, and especially what made more creative people different to their peers who were less creative in the same field. So he specifically took architects as a big example. He did a big study and he sort of went to the architects and said, right, well, who's the ones that are considered most creative? Who are the ones that are less creative? And he studied everything about them, their habits, what they did in their day, how they approached everything. Now, why this is very relevant to us as flute players is it's one of those fields, and that's why MacKinnon chose it, because it's an art and a science. It's that lovely mixture. An architect can design a beautiful, gorgeous building, but they also have to make sure it won't fucking fall down. There has to be technicality to it as well. So MacKinnon studied their habits and the personalities and found 3 main findings in this study. Number 1, they had the ability to switch between 2 types of thinking, or 2 modes of thinking. One was this like playful, exploratory, relaxed kind of vibe, and the other one is focused, decisive, and evaluative. Now, John Cleese expanded on this, and he calls those modes closed and open modes for how you think. So the open mode is when you're exploratory, relaxed, playful, and the closed mode of thinking is focused, decisive, and evaluative. Jesus Christ, that Guinness from last night is picking up on me. Number 2, MacKinnon found out that creative people are more comfortable with ambiguity, which is a really important thing. Ambiguity and uncertainty. They could sit with that discomfort. And number 3, they were better at suspending judgments or decisions, and they allowed ideas to incubate. So what they realized was if there was an important decision that had to be made, these more creative people would leave the making of the decision until the very last minute possible. They would put it off as long as they could to allow everything to sort of incubate. Now, Cleese took these principles and he summed them up in a much more simple language. So I said open and closed modes of operating, because creativity is a mode of operation. There's this myth or this idea that people are born with creativity, or they have like a creative temperament, or they're made for the arts. It's bollocks. It's all horseshit, man. Creativity is a mode of operation that we choose to enter into. It's something we can all access. In fact, there's actually a model for this, or an idea called the 4 C's of creativity. It was an idea coined by Kaufman and Brigetto, and it has 4 levels. So the number 1 is the little C, is what he calls it, the 4 C's. Number 1 is the little C, and that's the most common level of creativity. Something we can all do. So it's something like cooking a meal, or reorganizing your desk, or even fucking choosing what background you want to have in your iPhone. These are creative processes, but they're very small ones. That's the little c. The mini c is next, and that was creating on a recreational level. So it's your hobbies. It's dedicated time to being creative, like drawing or writing or painting, etc., at a hobby level. Pro C is level 3, and that is where creativity becomes a profession. You're a professional creative, so professional musicians, writers, designers, flute players, for example. Generally, it's 10 years dedicated minimum to your craft. Then you achieve the Pro C level of creativity. And the last one is the big C. Now, the big C is the one that gets people into the history books. It's the greats. It's your Beethovens and your Gordon Ramsays and your George O'Keeffes and your Oscar Wildes and your Jimmy Galways, even. But all 4 levels in the C feed into each other. And as I said, the most significant one out of the 4 is the small c, the little c, the very first one, the small acts of creativity to improve your creative health. And this is the last, okay, it's the last definition, I promise, before we get back to the story, because we have to get back to the story, intertwining, fucking stick with me. The last definition I want to give you is creative health. Because creative health is a real thing. And here, I've got a hot take for you. I think it's going to be the next big thing in terms of health. I think sort of 2030, we're going to see creative health getting big news articles. Like, nobody gave a fuck about their physical health until the 1980s. That is true. Nobody gave a shit. It was not a big thing. What changed that? Well, for example, in the Western world, one of the things that changed it was Jane Fonda fucking coming out with those aerobics videos. It was mad. And that came out in 1982. There was a film in 1977 called Pumping Iron. It was one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's first ever films. Now, the premise of the film is they go to California, they find Schwarzenegger, and they find all his mates. And it's a novelty. It's like a freak show kind of thing. Like, look at these men. They're out here in California, and they're lifting heavy things, and they're setting them back down recreationally. That's spending their time. And the idea of that was, look how ridiculous this is. Look at these men who are just lifting things and setting them down to get big muscles. How fucking insane. Now it's commonplace, man. You go to any fucking phone shop and you got some big, massive freak working behind it with giant muscles. Physical health maintenance is totally incorporated into Western society. And then if you look at the mental health awareness campaign, that's where it started in the 2010s. It's gathering speed massively. One of the big slogans that you might remember in the UK and Ireland was, it's okay to not be okay. Although all these other slogans popped up, and now, okay, it needs to get bigger, but these are all part of national dialogues across the world. And next up will be creative health. Mark my words. We're not quite there yet with mental health, but the awareness is certainly there. People are starting to look after it, and we're starting to learn from it. Creative health will be next, because especially in the modern age of social media, creativity is an antidote to this fucking chaos that we see with social media. True creativity, for example, has no goal. It is without purpose. It is not to make a piece or a work or to complete something or to present something or to achieve something. It is being creative for the sake of being creative. It's playing. It's having fun. It's having the crack. It's being curious. Children are the best at this. By the way, children are fucking perfect at this. And you can watch it. Every child does this in some kind of way. And if they don't, it's a huge problem psychologically if children don't express curiosity or playfulness. But like, if you take the example of a kid sitting down to play with Legos, even when you were wee, you might have sat down and played with Legos. You didn't sit down and go, I'm going to build this. I've got 20 minutes here. I may get to work and build Notre Dame. Of course you fucking didn't. You sat down and you just started putting shit together. You just fucked about. You fucked about and you enjoyed it. You picked up things like, oh, wonder what that is. What if I stick it in here? I mean, other Lego pieces, not in yourself. Sometimes in yourself, but you didn't have a goal. Children don't have goals when they sit down to create or to play. They don't have rules. They don't, and if you try to give them one, they're not going to listen to you as long as they're safe. As long as they feel like the adults got the responsibility, they're safe. While adults find it really hard to play because you have responsibilities, you have life. It's really hard for adults to just play and let go of everything and just have a bit of fucking crack. Children got lost and get lost in this creative process. They just fuck about. It's fun. And approaching tasks with curiosity, playfulness, and humor are key to creativity. And by nature, you have to remove the ego. You have to kill the ego. There is no ego involved in creativity. There cannot be. And in the modern day where ego is so fucking central to social media, this is, again, an antidote to that. And killing your ego and entering the open mode of thinking that we talked about earlier regularly will have wonders for your self-esteem. It gives you this sense of belonging and purpose. You're no longer comparing yourself to other people. And you're not measuring yourself against some kind of predefined framework of success. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. You're fucking about. You can't win. You can't lose. It's just a process. And that feeling is so incredibly beneficial to your mental health. So, anyway, enough definitions. Let's get back to the story. Let's see how we're getting on for time. 20 minutes here. Fuck, I'm doing great. So, we'll pick up. I just started Inline G. Inline G at that time, as I said, was pure creativity for me, pure open mode thinking. Writing the episodes was utter enjoyment, just getting fucking lost in that process. And I was doing it on the weekly. Every week there was an episode coming out. Massive episodes. They take a shitload of writing, these episodes. At the time, I was doing it for me. I didn't give a fuck what you guys thought. I mean, it's nice to hear. But at that time especially, I didn't give a fuck. I was doing what I wanted to do for me, and I stuck it out on the internet, and then I just moved on to the next episode. I didn't have time to reflect on the last episode or look at streams or numbers or any of that shit. That's where creativity's getting fucked. I was just making the art for the sake of making the art. I create something I'm proud of, I upload it, and forget about it. The bit I care least about in this whole process still is the releasing. It's like Tyson Fury. It's like I read Tyson Fury's autobiography recently, for anyone not familiar, the heavyweight boxer. I think it was 2012, was it? Or 2015. 2015, I think. He won the World Heavyweight Championship, the Unified World Heavyweight Championship, actually in Dusseldorf against Klitschko. And it was like his big goal. It's every boxer's big dream to win a unified world championship. That was the thing he wanted to achieve. He worked for it his entire life. And he went through a terrible bout of depression after winning it. And he said that bout of depression started the minute he got back to the dressing room after winning it. The second he sat down, the depression kicked in like that. Because all the purpose and the meaning of this lifelong search for his biggest dream, it was gone. It was done. The achievement itself, it's such a temporary high. Achieving anything is a temporary high. It's never permanent. So we don't need to chase that. We chase the process, because if you enjoy the process, it's a much higher, a longer lasting high. And without it being intentional, I'm only learning this because I'm reflecting back on it. Without it being intentional, I realized I was spending hours a week entering creative flow, which is an important state, and having my creative health boosted. Hours every single week. Totally without being aware of it. And away from the fucking flute as well. I was not playing much at that time. I had a teaching job that I fucking hated, and I've done episodes on this as well. My self-esteem at that time was awful. All my orchestral work and solo work had dried up. My tour was cancelled. I fell out with my teacher. I had a breakup. I was in a foreign country. It was fucked. But through Inline G, over like a year or so, I was quietly in the background, not even knowing I was doing it, building my self-esteem up, bit by bit. And this creative open mode of thinking became a standard way for me to operate. It's something I'd learned to enter so quickly, again, without thinking about it. I'm so glad I've got a name for it now, because it really helps. Also, I should say at this point, the closed mode of thinking is also really important, okay? When I edit the podcast, or when I revise anything that I've written, or I review anything, also when I do performances, when I go back to listen to what I've done, that's where the closed mode has to come in. That's why I have to approach it with focus and one-sided tunnel vision and decisiveness. It's very, very useful. And jumping between those two modes constantly is something that's really important for an artist. The creative process to create something, what was it Blind Boy said once? He writes with fire in his veins and edits with ice. So you have to jump between these two modes constantly. One to create, one to review. Then back to create, back to review. And great artists can jump between them, and that's called iteration, that process. But anyway, basically a friend, so what happened after all this was I had a friend who lived in Cologne, and she only knew I still played the flute because of Inline G, because she listened to an episode, it's like, oh, you actually played it, and I didn't know you were playing still. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing any gigs, I'm not doing anything else, but yeah, I still play the flute. And she was like, oh, fuck, you're still playing. Well, that's amazing, because I'm leaving Cologne, and I need someone to take over my teaching positions. And she was like, do you want to do it? I was like, fuck, brilliant. Now, I'm not going to lie. When she first said that, the first thing that happened was I had this pang of anxiety, like a PTSD reaction of, fuck, but it's in German. I can't speak German well enough to teach. I can't do it. No, it's too hard for me. Cannot do it. And my German is grand, but I had a real complex about it back then that I just couldn't work in German, and I had to find English or French working. But after that and little anxiety pang, I started thinking about it, again, unknowingly, with an open mode of thinking. And I said, sure, why not? That was my answer. I was like, fuck it, why not? And my thought process was, I wasn't even nervous for the interview. I just thought, I'm going to go to the interview. I didn't practice my German. I didn't look at any words. I went, fuck it, let's go along. I'll give it a lash. And here, if it's shy, it'd be a funny story to tell in the pub. And I really approached it with that thing of like, I'm going to make a mess. I said, who cares? I just going in, I was like, I'll see what happens. I'm going to go in and just give it a lash. See what happens. pure curiosity and playfulness. I was not taking it seriously. I thought, nah, fuck it. And I made that choice to do that. And you can do that, by the way. I chose to go into that interview with a playful, fun, silly attitude. And it fucking worked for both. I did 2 interviews, one after the other, and it worked for both of them. It was great. They loved me because of that. And I had 2 new jobs. Suddenly I had 2 teaching jobs in German and in good schools and well paid. And my life just turned around suddenly because of it. And then 2 weeks later, very similar story. A friend of mine who's been on this podcast, Elise, talked about her many times. Also, Elise is half the reason why I'm so fucking hungover today. But she found out I was still practicing and keeping active on my flute because of Inline G. She heard an episode and she's like, oh fuck, I didn't know you were still practicing to that level. I was like, yeah, I'm always ready. I'm just not mad on the idea of doing a gig or an audition. She's like, well, if you're still practicing, we need a flute player to come in with the orchestra and cover. Do you want to come down and do it? And again, previous me would have been like, fuck, orchestra, short notice, professional, can't do it, this is too big a deal. But I was like, fuck it, I'll give it a lash. It's because 2 weeks ago I did some interviews for a job in Germany. I was like, fuck it, what's the worst that can happen? I'll go down to the orchestra and play shit. I play shit on this number, be asked back again. But it's better than nothing. It's better than fuck all. And I really approached it with the idea of I'm going to go in and be curious about this. I'm going to be playful. I'm going to see if I can have a bit of crack and a bit of fun while I'm doing this. And I loved every fucking second of it. Even when I got like this weird hazing thing from the orchestral leader, which I think I've talked about in this podcast before, I laughed it off. The previous Gareth would have been having anxiety attacks in that bus, overhearing a deliberate conversation putting me down to haze me. I would have freaked out at that. This time I was looking at this guy going, mate, you're a wanker. You're a wank. I was laughing at him going, imagine being that fucking petty that you have to try and do that. Who the fuck do you think you are, by the way? And I was grand with it because I just chose to take this attitude towards it. I'm like, man, it's an orchestra. It's not the end of the fucking world. We don't do real jobs. It's grand. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And this strength, this self-esteem, this confidence, this has all just became, over the years, like a default operating system for me. And through that, I've got 2 new orchestral positions, which I'm doing regularly, 2 new teaching positions, loads of fucking chamber music, a full calendar, chock-a-blocked, full of fucking stuff, absolutely fucking stuffed. And I'm not gonna lie, my calendar is so busy, I cannot fit in Inline G anymore. It's really hard for me to find the time to do this podcast. But the benefits that this podcast brings me, I have to make it. I have to make time for it. It's so important to my creative health. This process of entering creative flow has to stay in my life. I need to be able to do that on the regular all the time. It keeps my mind open. It keeps my creativity and my creative health well maintained. And my ability to go into the open mode is well maintained if I'm doing it in the regular. And Inline G always works for that. And lads, I really didn't want to talk about me too much in this episode. I wanted to tie it in more, but I want to just talk about creativity. I'm going to go back to that because it's so fucking class. I'm so hyped about it. But first of all, have you still got the threads? Let's go back to them. Hold up show me your left hand. I think it was, I can't remember. Failure. We've talked about that. I brought it back. See, I read a book about how to tell a narrative. You bring things back. You fucking lucky bastards, man. You're getting this for free as well. I forgot to do a Patreon read. Fuck. You're getting this for free. Sign up to the Patreon, please, if you're enjoying this episode, because you're keeping the podcast alive, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do a full Patreon read, but you know the crack. There's a Patreon over there. If you subscribe to the Patreon, you're keeping the podcast alive. I do all this work for fuck all money. No sponsors. It's all you. Go sign up to it, please, if you can afford it. It's a $5 a month, for fuck's sake. Anyway, creativity holds very little currency in modern society. We know this, okay? As society, as we become more obsessed with efficiency and productivity and hacks, biohacks and achievements, just fucking about for the sake of fucking about doesn't seem very useful. People are hacking everything nowadays. I've seen people like hacking their diets to live 10 years longer by like never eating sugar. I'm like, man, what kind of fucking life is that? Grow up. Eat a fucking chocolate bar. Eat a Bounty. Fuck up. But because you can't tangibly measure creativity, it's got nothing, it's got no value in modern society. And failure is a big part of that, because in modern society, or in this sort of social media world, failure has 2 sort of purposes or meanings. Which is one, it's shameful. It's a shameful thing. It's something that was wrong. We measured it against the good thing that we wanted, and it's therefore the bad thing that we don't. It's like this binary negative to achievement. Or 2, it's a motivator. It's the first chapter of the success story. Everything went wrong, but then I overcame it and I did it. failure becomes this dragon you have to fucking slay, or this demon that you have to get past to be truly happy. It's dog shit. But if you approach with the open mode of thinking again, failure is a different thing. By the way, I'm going to tell you how to access the open mode later. Don't worry. But failure is a different thing. It's an essential part of any creative process. You have to fuck up. A perfect example of this, and one people love using, but it is bang on. Alexander Fleming. Man, if he was in the closed mode of thinking, just trying to get like some fucking achievement to put up on his Instagram, he would have looked at that petri dish that had no fucking culture on it, and with the mold on it, and he would have said, no, it's a failure, fuck it, I'm throwing it in the bin. But he didn't. He looked at it and went, there's mold on this. And he was obviously in the open mode of thinking, because he got really fucking curious about it. He studied it, he observed it, without judgment, without a goal. He just fucking picked it up and went, here, have a wee look at this. And as a result, we invented penicillin. Penicillin is discovered because someone was being creative and curious and playful in the open mode of thinking. It worked. The amount of episodes I have written for Inline G and just fucking deleted them is uncountable. Uncountable, but they're not failures. Not one of them is. They're just not the things that I posted online, but they're very much so part of the creative process, and I love them. And using the open mode of thinking, you can teach yourself to welcome failure. And in fact, I actively encourage everybody listening to go out and deliberately fail at something. Fuck it up. Do the thing that is the worst case scenario in a controlled way. I'm talking about a creative process. I'm not talking like throw your fucking phone into the river. I'm saying if you're doing something creative, like practicing, and you're afraid of making a fucking ugly sound, go and make the most ugly sound you can and dedicate an hour of your life to making it uglier and uglier and uglier in your practice. Or if you're worried about your articulation not being as clean, go and make it as fucking sloppy as you can for an hour. Just fucking work at it and dedicate yourself wholly to making it as awful as you can. Put way too much vibrato when you've been told not to use any. Do whatever it is. Whatever you're afraid of doing in a creative thing, go and do it to fuck, right? Get comfortable with failure. Let it be your mate. Take it out for a pint and watch the football. Buy some chips afterwards. Failure is not to be feared. It's your friend in the creative process. So I'm going to give you guys some tips on how you can enter that open mode of thinking that John Cleese talked about and when to do it, so you can train yourself to use it at will. So your next practice session, if you're a musician, if you're not a musician and you're not practicing, this is not going to be much use to you, but you can find something else to do it with. But if you're not creative at all in a professional capacity, my biggest advice is go out and start actively doing something creative. I'll talk about that later. Just bear with me for now. So, musicians, your next practice session, this is what I want you to do. I fucking promise it'll work for you, because it's what's working for me now. My flute playing's amazing at the minute. I love playing the flute. Firstly, you're going to explore without knowing where you're going. And you're going to decide that before you go in. You're going to explore, and the next practice session, you're not going to have a fucking clue where it's going to go. And a lot of people think that's a bit wishy-washy, but Einstein even said, if we know what we're doing when we're investigating something, it's not research. Next up, you have to remove any possibility of interruption. So our goal here is to access what we call creative flow. I've mentioned that a few times. It's a state of being. Now, creative flow state, we call it flow because it has this sort of ethereal water feeling. It's a state where we, first of all, let go of ego and we allow ourselves to be immersed entirely in the creative process, and suddenly everything feels a bit floaty. It feels a bit surreal. You get this like hyper-focused. It's almost like a trance. A lot of people say when they come out of a creative flow state, it almost feels like you've time traveled. But this all sounds very wishy-washy. I know. You've all had this feeling. You've all done this. There has definitely been a point in your life when you've been so fucking engrossed in something that has no goal. You're not trying to achieve something. You've just started doing something. You could have been fucking knitting. You could have been fucking up. You could have been doodling on a bit of paper in the middle of the class. You've done something and just got into it and just enjoyed the process, and suddenly you went, fuck, I've been doing that for an hour. Or fuck, I've been doing that for 20 minutes. Where'd that time go? You've all done that. That is flow. That is a state that you want to have. That is where we create our best art, because we're letting the subconscious do its magic. Now, you cannot make creative flow happen. You can't force it upon yourself. But what you can do is create the conditions that are most conducive to it popping up. You have to coax it out. You have to play tricks. You have to plant traps. You have to be awful fucking crafty to get creative flow going. But firstly, boundaries of time and space to get rid of interruptions. You need to have, for your practice session, at least 2 hours totally free. Zero interruptions. Nothing to do in those 2 hours. And especially, no fucking phones. And don't give me this bollocks of, oh, you buy my metronome, my tuner's on my phone. Go and buy a metronome or a tuner from somewhere else. You don't need a phone for 2 hours. Take your phone out of the fucking room. Just get away from it. If you think you're going to get bored in the practice session, bring a book. Bring a fucking game. Bring something that isn't your phone to go and do. If you get bored, you can do that instead for 5 minutes. No phones. And it is hard at first. Because when you sit down in your room to do this and you try to be creative, all the things in your mind are going to start suddenly fucking popping up. All the things, because you're giving your brain a bit of peace and quiet, all these thoughts are going to come running in. I need to go shopping. I forgot to buy toilet paper. Why the fuck did Germany keep beating us in penalties? It'll keep happening, okay? We get like this. We all get like this. It's very similar to meditation. If anyone's ever done meditation out there, it's very similar. And one of the advices you're given when you're doing meditation is to view these thoughts as if you're on the side of a motorway or a busy highway for my American friends. And these thoughts are the cars, and they're just passing. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're fast, sometimes they're slow, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they've got a Donald Trump sticker on the back of them, but it doesn't matter. They just go past. And if you're on the side of the motorway, you don't jump in and try to fucking stop them. If you lost your mind, you just notice them. They're just going past. That one's big, that one's wee. Who gives a fuck? You just notice. They come and go without judgment. Don't try to get rid of those thoughts. Don't try to bat them away. Don't try to judge yourself for having them. Just notice them. Just sit and let them be. By the way, practicing meditation in general, great start to all this. Now, the longer you sit in this space and sit with that discomfort, the more your mind will calm and settle. And I'm not talking long. We're talking fucking 9 minutes. You will start to feel the effects already. I promise. I really promise. Next, when you start to do a bit of practicing and playing the flute, everything you do, you have to make the very conscious choice to approach it with playfulness and curiosity. Essential. By the way, fun side effect of that, you will start laughing. I don't know why, but you start to have a lot of fun with yourself, and humor naturally arrives here. This is where humor fits in. This is the zone that humor loves to pop its head up, and it's where we find things funny. You can't find things funny if you're in an uncomfortable situation. Or if you can, it will break the discomfort. But humor has to be when we're relaxed, or humor will make you relaxed. It's a wonderful thing for that. Now, every single thing you do, just for this one session, okay, choose to be curious about it. Make the conscious effort to be curious and playful, okay? If you play a wrong note, wrong, doesn't exist in a session, but if you play something you don't like, don't go, it's shit or it's wrong. Ponder it. What is it? Why is it there? Doesn't even fucking matter. Just notice it. Just notice that you did something wrong. So, oh, I did that. Don't judge it, okay? The more you do this, your mind will start to subconsciously bring ideas and notions, often quite strange ones, forward to solve puzzles for you. And this is where the unconscious mind, which is the most powerful bit of our brain, you always hear that shit of 90% of your brain you don't even use. The subconscious, the unconscious part of the brain is the most powerful. This is where it does its magic. So just let it be. Let your unconscious be. Don't fuck with her. Don't talk to her. Don't interrupt her. She's working away. And maybe after 10 minutes of this, you'll go, right, fuck this, I'm done. I'm going back to my phone. That's also fine. Go and do it. If you need to, do it. Have another lash at this another day. You will get better at it. But again, no judgment. Just observe it. Whatever happens, just let it happen. Do that for a week. Okay? Do one session like that. Try to do it every day or every other day for a week. And come back to me. Now, for the non-musicians out there, this isn't just about practice. There are other ways. Musicians do this as well. But you can practice the little C, and you can start activating the same open mode of thinking through the little C of creativity. Washing the dishes, for example. Choose, I know this sounds fucking ridiculous, but choose consciously, when you're washing the dishes, to be curious about the process. Be mindful and curious about it. Say, I can feel the plate. I can see where it's going. Narrate it to yourself and be aware of it. And get curious about it. Get fucking curious. If you're sitting on the bus, take the fucking the AirPods out. Take the headphones off. Look out the window and say, I'm going to choose to be curious about what I see out the window for the next 5 minutes. And just give yourself 5 minutes of uninterrupted curiosity. Now, start noticing things. Another amazing side effect on this, by the way, when you get good at this, life starts to come alive. People always talk about this fucking thing of colors are brighter and smells are more distinct and the noise in your brain quiets down. This does happen when you do this. I promise. You'll be amazed at the fucking effects of it. Now, try to tap into the open mode of thinking as often as you can, at least daily, and make the conscious effort to do it. And if you're ever unsure if you're doing it right or not, I have a brilliant tip. Imagine you're 5 years old. Imagine you're a 5-year-old whose parents are there. So the parents are in the background. Nothing bad's going to happen to them. They're being observed. They're being looked after. They know they're safe. But imagine how a 5-year-old would approach this. Role play that. It works every fucking time. Every fucking time. Because kids do that thing. They just pick it up and they look at it. They just curiosity. Totally devoid of any anxiety. Now, if you look to your right hand, you'll see a bit of string. And we are at the end of the podcast, more or less. So you can give that a pull. Give it a wee pull. And it says on it, orange cola. So there's a bottle right here of what I've been talking about. Again, regular listeners, you'll be very aware of this. But if you're new around here, it's quite special. This is a drink called Spätzle. It's a German classic drink. It's a mixture of orange lemonade and cola. It's absolutely fucking delicious. It's a tie between this and Boris Becker for the best thing Germany's ever done. It's absolute gold on a hangover as well. But I've always adored the branding of Spätzle. It's made by Paulaner down in Munich. And you can see the colour and the font and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully you can see it in the camera. If you can't, go and Google it, you'll find it. Now, when I started Inline G, I had this big goal that I wanted to be a flute podcast that everyone could listen to. I wanted it to be cool. Sexy, edgy, fun, informative, yes, all those things, but above all, cool. And with my total creative freedom, after 10 episodes, I rebranded the podcast. A designer friend of mine who does a lot of things for football clubs and fashion brands, he redesigned my logo, inspired by Spätzle. I sent him a message and I was like, here, man, there's a Spätzle logo. Give me something in that vein. The colour palette was changed to the podcast to purple. And we got talking about merchandise too, by the way. You can get it on the Inline G shop. These caps, don't date a flute player. All this shit is part of that brand. I mean, just rebranding. My target audience was never flute players. And it never will be. It's everyone who just wants to get into the deep end, get balls deep in the classical music world. I'm from Belfast. I haven't mentioned it fucking 300 times in this episode already. And their rebelliousness holds very high value. It's a high currency thing to be rebellious in Belfast. Now, one day, a German friend of mine saw my logo, my new rebranded logo, and they were really panicked. And they were like, but it's very similar to the Spätzle logo. Do you know, you be careful, they might sue you. And that dichotomy of Germany and Ireland really hit me hard at that moment. Because they had genuine fear for me. But I had this fucking brainstorm. A legal case with Spätzle trying to sue me for copying their logo would be golden publicity. So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to design stickers and banners and graphics and posters copying their logo exactly, but changing it to Inline G. I even started a small campaign in Cologne where Spätzle launched these huge billboards around the city and I give people these stickers, which you can see here. I mean, fucking hell, it's ridiculous how much I literally copied it. I got people to put these stickers on top of the logos to just try and fucking wind Paulaner up and see if they could do it. Which also coincided with a threat that I got around the same time from a very prominent PR crisis management firm in New York, advising me that a guest of mine, journalist Sammy Sussman, was being sued for $50 million for defamation, including some comments he made on my podcast. We will get to that in the workshop more in depth. But you guys have probably heard me talk about this. There is an episode about that. You can go check it out. The assault scandal with the New York Philharmonic. Now, this new, confident, open mode thinker Gareth saw this as a massive positive. Because if you're pissing off these kind of people, you're pissing off the right kind of people. It was golden publicity for me. And finally, in classical music, I could let this inner rebelliousness out. This unfiltered, raw, pure Belfast. And this attitude has stayed with me in all my creative endeavours since then. And I'm thriving throughout it. So open mode thinking has changed everything. The Inline G podcast has changed everything. I love this process. I love everything about it. It has been the greatest thing I've done in my creative career. And it all started with just fucking about. Go and fuck about for a while. Go and fuck around and find out what happens. So, Sláinte, everyone, I'm away now. I'm flying to Ireland tomorrow. So, here's to finding your own true self in an industry that doesn't always value you. Opera.